But when Kadarius Toney has that ball squirt through his hands, and all over social media is the picture of Toney, hands out, ball in it, frozen there, saying this play ended in a pick six. But it hits the hands, it squirts up, and there it was. And it's resilience, it's opportunity, and it's just you go and you go and you go, and something breaks your way. And once that happened, that's when you could just feel, okay, this is a tie game now. And yeah, it's still the Chiefs, and yeah, it's still Patrick Mahomes, and yeah, you know, we've seen them win these games when it was close and when they were behind or whatever. But this is the moment where, with just under 11 minutes left in the third quarter, we got a ball game and we got a chance for the Detroit Lions to take it. Because that was, when you consider that first drive of the second half, what was the notion? The Chiefs drive down and score a touchdown just before halftime. This is the Bill Belichick, 2 drives on either side of the half. We're going to go get 2 touchdowns. We're going to be up 14. And there's the photo. That became a pick six. Peter, how does that become a pick six? And I don't want to dump on Kadarius Toney because he hasn't practiced much. He's had the knee issue. The coaches are the ones who kept putting him out there on the field when it was obvious he wasn't ready to go. He wasn't focused. He wasn't able to make those catches. He dropped too many balls. And I appreciate the fact they still had faith in him, but there's a point where you have to say, it's not in the cards tonight. He hasn't practiced. He hasn't played. It's just not working. But to see that image with that ball there and those gloves, and we know how those gloves are. Those gloves are like Velcro. And the ball ended up popping out and returned for a touchdown, and that's it. And that's how close these games can be. That one moment changes everything. Because if he makes that catch and they keep driving and it goes to 21-7, we're talking about a very different reality this morning.
Look, Mike, you talk about, well, you don't want to dump on Kadarius Toney. This is professional football. This is not high school football. Honestly, if something like that happened in high school where a guy hands an interception and a pick six to the other team, and then on what could be the decisive drive in the fourth quarter, he drops a play that could have, should have been a 35, 40-yard gain. Okay, and that is going to get Kansas City, at the very least, in position for one of the best kickers in football, Harrison Butker, at least, to kick a field goal that could have put them ahead with, just minutes to play. But whatever. All I'm saying is that if you're going to celebrate the guys when they play great, you have to rightfully point the finger when the guy plays terrible. And last night, Kadarius Toney did everything humanly possible to hand the game to the Detroit Lions. That's a fact of life. He's going to have to live with it. Andy Reid, Brett Veach, they're going to have to decide, even when we get Travis Kelce back, okay, with the no-show last night, with Travis Kelce and Skyy Moore, 2 guys who are supposed to be huge. And by the way, in the immortal words of Alanis Morissette, isn't it ironic that the 2 guys who caught the touchdown passes that beat Philadelphia in the Super Bowl, Kadarius Toney and Skyy Moore, they're the 2 guys who basically helped in a big way, cost them the win last night at Arrowhead Stadium.
After the drop that was at the end of the pack we just showed, where it wasn't just hits him in the hands and he doesn't hold on to it, the way that he was moving his body to try to get the ball, it was like, again, he had no business being out there. It's like he hasn't been on a football field in months. Like, the ball's coming in, and we've seen and we get spoiled by the incredible ball skills that players have, where a ball's in the vicinity and they know how to put their hands and snatch it. Watch the other angle on this. When it's like, what is that? Oh. That's how I would be trying to catch it. Now watch Mahomes. See that with that hand signal? We're like, is that get this guy the hell out of here? I don't know what this was when he's doing this after that play, but I feel like he knew, whatever the reason. We hardly saw him in training camp. He had the knee issue, and they were saying he's good to go, he's good to go. there's a point where you just have to say he's not good to go. And they can't will this guy into being their next Tyreek Hill. They want him to be number one receiver. They stole him from the Giants, at least they thought they did. And speaking of the immortal words of Alanis Morissette, although I don't know it counts as immortal if she's still among us, regardless, the Chiefs fans last year were thrilled that they stole Kadarius Toney for a third-round pick and a sixth-round pick. The buzz last night from the Giants fans and the Giants beat writers was, hey, we got a third-round pick and a sixth-round pick for that guy. That's pretty damn good because he stinks.
Well, the other thing about that, Mike, is, if Darren Waller plays well, I think Darren Waller is the guy who they got with the pick from Kansas City.
Yes.
They got a 3 and a 6. And, if Darren Waller ends up playing well for the Giants, and look, I'm not portending anything, but that's still a big if because he needs to stay healthy, and he hadn't been able to stay healthy in Vegas. I think that's one of the reasons why Vegas, was willing to give him up for a third-round pick. So, look, there's a lot, and Mike, we said it at the beginning, and I feel this way very, very strongly. To draw too much out of this game, too much negative out of this game if you're Kansas City, you got to look at everything. But, I saw stuff last night, they got to trade for Mike Evans. They got to do this. Hey, look, in an ideal world, I'm sure Brett Veach would love to pull the trigger on a trade for Mike Evans of Tampa. But how many guys are you going to pay? That's the problem in today's football. One of the first things I thought when I saw the Nick Bosa contract is, who is that going to cost the San Francisco 49ers? So, because it will, whether it be in the future, whether it be inability to sign, let's say, Brandon Ayuk, I don't know. We don't know yet. But, you got to look internally more than externally now. If you're Andy Reid, you've got to solve your problems from within. And honestly, the one thing that I would try to do this coming week, if I were Andy Reid, if I were Patrick Mahomes, I would try to get Skyy Moore to get back and to become a playmaker for this team. Because my one memory from talking to Mahomes at training camp in St. Joseph, Missouri, is Skyy Moore has had an unbelievable offseason. He's been fantastic. He's been at every workout. He's followed me to Texas. He's done everything that we need him to do. So Skyy Moore, who's totally healthy, and you drafted in the second round and saw a lot of potential of, Skyy Moore is the guy who, if I were Kansas City right now, look, I don't know what they're going to do with Toney, but I think Skyy Moore is the guy who they need to look at going into a very, very tough game in Jacksonville. I'd look at Skyy Moore, and the last thing I'll say, Mike, about their offensive weaponry, they've got to use Justin Watson more, period. This guy is a good to very good NFL receiver who simply hasn't had enough chances. He's a guy who's reliable, and I think he's a guy who Kansas City's got to get on the field more.
There has been one game in the past 10 years that Travis Kelce did not play, but the rest of the starters did. Since missing almost all of his rookie season, he's missed 3 games. 2 because they were resting starters, and 1 because he had COVID. That was the game December 26, 2021 against the Steelers. And in that game, Patrick Mahomes threw the ball to 10 different receivers, completing the ball to 9 of them. Last night, he spread it around to 12 guys, with 11 of them catching passes. The only one who didn't have a catch who was targeted was Skyy Moore, targeted 3 times with 0 catches. And as you mentioned, between Moore and Toney, 1 total catch, 1 total yard, 4 drops from Toney. So they did spread the ball around a lot, but as you're saying, they didn't feed the guys who were getting it done. They weren't playing the hot hand. They were trying to force an agenda. This idea that Toney kept getting opportunities when it seemed like he just wasn't in it mentally and something was missing. You got other guys. You don't have to keep going to Kadarius Toney, regardless of whether or not he should have been catching the ball, regardless of whether or not this was because he didn't practice or play. There's a point where you just have to say, you know what? Justin Watson is catching the ball. Noah Gray is catching the ball. Rashee Rice had the touchdown early. Where did Rashee Rice go after that? So let's get the ball to the guys who are catching it. We get so enamored with this idea that Patrick Mahomes is just going to find a way, and he's going to throw to the open guy. You still have to draw up the plays and call the plays that will feature the guys who are getting it done. Let's dial up the plays that will lean toward the guys who are performing tonight. And that may be the thing that the Chiefs had a hard time doing on the fly, Peter, because that rarely happens, because Travis Kelce always performs. And in the past, when they had Tyreek Hill, for as much as a pain in the butt as he became for them, he always performed. And this idea that we got guys out there that just can't perform, that's kind of foreign territory for these Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes. But that's something they got to be ready to do moving forward. When you have that many guys, especially if you're not going to have Kelce, if you got 12 different guys you're going to target potentially, you got to figure out which guys are delivering, and those are the guys that need to get the football.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mike, but I just think last night in this game, and I understand you saying maybe they did go to Kadarius Toney one too many times, but if you're Patrick Mahomes and Kadarius Toney is on the field and is as wide open as he was, can we show that play again? You know, in the fourth quarter, at the start of that key drive at the Kansas City 45, when Kadarius Toney basically doesn't have anybody close to him, and he tries to catch the ball awkwardly. Look at how open he was. And if you're Patrick Mahomes, you ask this question. Just look at how open he was. To not throw to him would have been the height of irresponsibility. And look, could Mahomes have led him a little bit better? Possibly. It appears that he could have, but any high school receiver catches that ball. It is right there. And there's nobody around him. There's no threat of getting hit. Nothing. And so to me, I can hardly blame Patrick Mahomes for targeting a wide open receiver on that play. But I do think going forward that Kadarius Toney's definitely going to have to re-earn the confidence of the play callers, the play designers, and the play executor, who's Patrick Mahomes.
But you touched on something, and we're so wired to just constantly praise Patrick Mahomes. We're witnessing history. We're experiencing greatness. He's one of the all-time best quarterbacks ever, and he's only been a starter for 5 years. But in some of the plays that we've shown today, two of the Kadarius Toney drops, they weren't exactly where they needed to be. I'm not making an excuse for Kadarius Toney, because I still think he should have been able, because we've seen professional athletes at the receiver position contort their bodies in that very simple way where it's like, oh, it's not right here, I'll go back here and make the catch. We take it for granted because it happens all the time. But the ball was behind him. Another drop from Toney, ball was behind him. The one where he was crossing underneath, ball was behind him. Skyy Moore, there was one. Ball was behind him. Got his hands on it. And we always say, if you get your hands on it, especially with those gloves, you should be able to catch it. But the ball was behind him. Now, that one obviously was right where it needed to be. But there was, and I keep thinking back to Tyreek Hill, who constantly says Tua Tagovailoa is the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. Well, that's low and away a little bit from Mahomes. So he wasn't as accurate as we've seen him in the past last night. But still, there were so many occasions where the ball is in the catch radius of the player and the player doesn't make the catch, that the players who are supposed to catch the ball, and we're used to seeing guys catch the ball all the time, we expect them to do it. But they weren't all perfectly, like the one that Toney popped up into the air for Brian Banks, they weren't all exactly where they ideally could have been. And a little of it then, not much, but a little of it is on the ball not being exactly where it needed to be.
I agree a little bit, but look, I of the people who were to blame for that game last night, Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, would be about 34th on the list. I mean, he wasn't as accurate as he normally is.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree. I'm just saying there's a little something there, just a little.
Right.
Right.
There's a little something there. But you use the term. It's the term that the Pittsburgh Steelers use, with Pickett to Pickens. Kenny Pickett told me this, about George Pickens in training camp. He said, I've never seen a player with the catch radius, of this receiver. And if the ball is in your area code, you practice. We see, I did something in the off season in which I talked to Amon-Ra St. Brown, and when he gets on the jugs machine after practice, he catches 202 balls. Why does he do that? Because a kid in high school who was supposed to be the best receiver in his area after practice every game caught 200 balls. And after practices and games, caught 200 balls. So he said, I'm going to do more. I'm going to catch 202. And he stuck with that. So look, I have no idea what the regimen is for Kansas City receivers after practice or in training camp. I don't know. But the fact is, those balls were catchable footballs. This is the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. This is not a USFL team, and I'm not being critical of the USFL. This is not a Division II college team. This is the best of the best. And if the ball is thrown in your area code, you have to catch the ball. There are no excuses. Catch the ball. So that's how I look at last night.
Let's hear from Chiefs head coach Andy Reid and also quarterback Patrick Mahomes on all of the drops that happened last night by the Chiefs pass catchers.
It's unusual for us to drop that many passes anywhere, anytime. So we'll go back and work on that. But you got to take care of business, and these guys know that, and so we've got to fix that.
I think they know that I'm gonna keep firing it, and so we'll try to get it fixed this next week and correct it going into the next game. I mean, I've trust in KT. He missed a lot of training camp. Obviously, he wanted to play and fought rehab hard so he could play. And stuff's not always going to go your way. Obviously, he would have wanted to catch a few of those in the game, but I've trusted he's going to be that guy that I go to in those crucial moments, and he's going to make the catch and win us some seasons like he did last year. So we're going to continue to work him in, get him more and more reps, and I'm sure that those drops will kind of disappear.
That's all they can really do. They understand the talent that Kadarius Toney has, the speed, the agility, the reason why they were thrilled to get him last year for a third-round pick and a sixth-round pick. And you don't give up on a guy just based on one game. But I think the message is within the confines of a given game, especially for as long as Travis Kelce is out, and who knows how long that will be. They have optimism he'll be back next week. We'll see. But even when he is in the game, I would like to see this Chiefs offense, which still doesn't have a clear number one receiver other than tight end Travis Kelce, but no wide receiver that has emerged as a top guy. You got to go with a hot hand. You got to find a way to get the ball to the guy who is delivering in a given game. And if a guy isn't, and I'm surprised when Andy Reid, and look, he's being charitable with his players and he knows how to have the right relationships with them, but I can hear in my brain from past press conferences like that, coaches saying, hey, if guys aren't going to catch the ball, we're going to put guys out there who will. Because it is professional football. And it's presumed that when the ball is within, a few feet of your torso, you will find a way to do what you're paid to do, which is put your hands on it, especially with those gloves that can catch anything and make the catch. Because that's what you do. We expect field goal kickers to make kicks, and we expect pass catchers to catch balls that are within their catch radius. So we'll see what happens. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.